I was so afraid of God. I wasn't. What do I want to say? I wasn't that immoral. As if. Yeah. I mean,
we're a hooligan.
I wasn't a hooligan, but I was. Yeah.
I've been given that title.
I was I could trouble could find me.
Mm. And so you weren't the pot stirrer.
If you're with the pot stirrers, and you're like, well, crap, I can't not do this, or I can't not go. There's the peer pressure.
Because then they'll call me chicken, and my gosh, dude, stand by me all over again.
All of that. So hiding, Genesis 3 was just a place I think my soul and heart not only believed but lived. I was ashamed, and so I hid, and that's just what you did, And so if my dogs, talking about dogs now, my dogs, if they know that we're about to leave, they just kind of start working their way to the kennel. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's an uncomfortable place for them.
No.
It's kind of a safe place.
Right.
But that's how I felt. I felt like, when you walk into church, I'm just going to go check into the kennel. I'm just going to go in there until...
You don't have to tell me.
Until, maybe he'll whistle for me.
Yeah.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson, hanging out with SJ Jennings. Hey, man, short sleeves today.
Yeah, dude. It's 85 degrees
almost
outside.
80 degrees. It is.
Absolutely.
It is the time of year in North Carolina where the yellow dust has done its thing. It's had its 3 weeks. Now it's simmered down. We had some good rain. But now we go up and down, man. We had freeze alerts 3 days ago. Yeah. Had to bring a few of my pansies in to make sure they were
We had to
okay.
cover peonies.
Oh, there you go. Mm-hmm. So it's that time of year, though, in North Carolina where it's like this. So anyway, but what do they call it? A faux spring? False spring?
False spring, yeah. It happens a lot here in North Carolina where you think it's going to be cooler, and then
it's the last couple cold fronts that can get through.
Warm up a little bit, and then you get the freeze warnings. And then it happens on the other side, too, where in September, we've just come through August, which is, everything's just sweaty. And then you get one of those cool days. Yeah. And you're like, oh, fall is here. And then it goes up to 80 degrees again.
Yeah, so. Don't put your coats away.
No.
And don't get your shorts out. It's in that in between.
That's right.
We had and we did get a chance to, in some of that really cooler weather, we were in Baltimore. Yeah. You and I got to do a Calvary Chapel
Delaware
County. They call it
CC Delco.
CC Delco, which I think is great.
Roger.
So, yeah. Exploring More podcast, checking in with CG Delco. Come in, CC Delco.
Come in, CC Delco.
This is what it sounds like.
Yeah, man.
So, we got to go not opening day, but opening week of the Major League Baseball League.
One of those early games, I think it was
Baltimore
game
Orioles.
8 or something like that of the season.
It was so fun, man. Baltimore Orioles, Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, Camden Yards.
Josh.
Great park too, man.
I'll give Andy a couple pictures so he can blast those up because there was some really fun.
They're fun. So while we were there, we got to see a couple home runs, and although it seemed for a couple of them you were going to get something to drink,
bathrooms.
As soon as you stood up and left, they'd hit a home run.
We were walking in the stadium in the top of the first inning.
Yeah,
and you hear this kind of a cheer groan thing because we're in Baltimore, and I don't know which one hit it.
Well, they call it Fenway South because a lot of the guys,
the Little Green Monsters up there, they got a Little Green Monster
because so many Red Sox fans come down for the games. Like it's close enough that people go, so that's what they call it.
Well, there were a lot of Red Sox fans there, including us.
Yeah.
It was not a very hostile environment for us to be in.
Felt very comfortable.
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if I'm going to see a Phillies game with Steven, up in Philadelphia, middle of the summer. He and I are going to go see the Red Sox. I will not be wearing my Red Sox gear for that game because Phillies fans, Philadelphia in general, you don't want to poke that bear pretty much. So,
yeah. Eagles and
you ever go
Eagles
see
and
Detroit
Phillies.
play against the Eagles? Probably don't want to wear your Detroit stuff.
Oh man, that's a good point. I have to think about that. If there's a away game to go, I don't know. Their whole division is so tough. They're all tough.
They are
tough old NFL.
Yeah,
with the Lions,
old
the
school,
Bears.
The Bears, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, speaking of Red Sox gear, I just wanted to say, this is for you. Yeah, thank you for your leadership through the Encounter weekend, for doing this with me, with us. And just want to say, you made mention of this particular item at one point at Baltimore.
Yes.
And I just wanted to surprise you with it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You wanted an all red.
I did. I did. I have a couple Red Sox hats, but not this one.
Yeah.
Andy doesn't let me do podcasting with a hat on because of the shade.
You can't see your eyeballs.
But this is a nice one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Looks good on you too. Not everybody can pull off a red hat, but it looks good.
Man. I have to start working on my signals.
Yeah. Get a little pine tar up there on the visor.
This is beautiful, man. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you for even the occasion. And you're a great gift giver. I've told you that. I've said it on camera before. And so, because you remember things. You do a great job of remembering. I'm going to have to say things like, man, I wish I had a truck.
Yeah.
So I have to be more careful about what I say.
Yeah. You'll get a Hot Wheels.
Yeah, that would be poetic. It'd be good. But we did. We had I think we've talked a little bit about it. If anybody has not known, we had a man go down at the Heart of Warrior Encounter a couple weeks ago, Mike Daniels, who had a cardiac arrest event. Yeah. And long story short, he's still here. He's still with us. I talked to him Saturday for about an hour, first time since he was gurneyed out. And it was really a great time to hear him say what happened to him versus I got to fill in a few things for him, what happened from the stage and things he didn't know. Mike wasn't in the room.
Right.
After his good friend who took him. But it was a very, I told Rick Hobbs today, I said, because he was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I said, it wasn't scary, but it was wild. It was eventful. I mean, it didn't feel like there was, talking about fear, but there was definitely a weightiness to an event like that where I think the veil, the domestic veil that is so thick in day-to-day chores and routines was, we were in another part of the kingdom where life and death and the veil is so thin that it's sheer. And we, we're standing there looking and watching and listening to the event that happened to Mike and just how God moved us and all these almost 300 guys through it. Your role from the stage and he remembers the singing.
Wow.
But was a bit in and out of.
Is that happening here?
Yeah,
where am I?
They really are singing up here. So anyway.
Yeah, it was, the fear certainly was not there. Mostly, I think, and there wasn't like a panic, like you said. Mostly, I think, because so many men were in the room that have skills and capability to help.
It was ridiculous.
And they leapt into action.
It was miraculous, for sure.
I might have said to you, I've said many times in recounting the event, it was like we had rehearsed it.
Yeah.
It really was, because the guys just
I agree.
responded. This guy did this, this guy did that. Things were taken care of, and it was miraculous.
Yeah,
so,
agreed.
Yeah, but a wild event for sure.
And an event, I'm gonna use that, an event in which we believe God wanted us to create to help men become more oriented. And as we lean into this podcast series of nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear, that's an oriented man, a man who knows where he is, who he is, and the good that God's up to in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And the result of that orientation is what makes him be able to live like Jesus, with nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear.
Man who's dangerous for good.
And so a man who's dangerous for good, right? Amen. And so, we're going to talk today about, before we take this break, about each one of these is going to be an episode. So if a man who's disoriented has something to hide, prove and fear, then we're going to talk about why we hide. Mm-hmm. And then how, in the same episode today, how do we make that transition and have nothing to hide? And then we'll step into nothing to prove and fear. And I wanted to, so I did a little digging in our Kindle versions, right? Our ebooks, and mm-hmm. which are great for doing searches. So on page 13 of Heart of a Warrior, what does it mean to be a beloved son? We need to be clear on this from the start. This is page 13. Because everything that follows flows from it. Everything that follows in these pages flows from it. A beloved son is one who is experiencing the unconditional love of his Father in a way that deeply impacts him and leaves him with nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear. So when people have asked, where did that come from, or how did that start? We covered a little bit of that last time. But back in 2016, as I had heard it a few years earlier, obviously this chord was struck in me, and it became something of our way of working with and walking with men from disorientation to orientation. And so that kind of love, when you're loved that way, it goes on and says, that kind of love leaves a mark. It has an encouraging and empowering effect on the son, and because of it, a man can be free. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the other part, as I looked at some of our exploration and preparation for today. I think it's the real headline, that nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear, is the subtitle. It definitely has its own weightiness. But if I'm able to live that way, that's what I'm living free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm living free. And that's what we believe is what Christ came to do, and to set us free. And it's the goal, it's the hope, it's the missional work. How do I get more free from the things that have tangled me up?
Yeah.
And encumbered me to walk with God in his love for me, and then because he loves me first, 1 John 4, I can love him back. And I know what love is, right? Forrest Gump. Mm-hmm. I may not be a smart man, but I know what love is. Mm-hmm. And I think about it, do we know what love is? Do we really know from experience, not from the academic or the intellectual, but from experience? Can we experience the love of God that can transform us into that very man who settled?
Yeah.
Who settled, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it occurs to me that this is, even for, if we've got some new listeners, tuning in for the first time, we think about hide, prove, fear. Yeah, what comes to mind is, at one point in my journey, I thought, well, I just have to deal with sin, because if I just stop sinning, then I have nothing to hide, prove, or fear. Yeah.
And who has not bought that appliance and the warranties?
Yeah.
And
it's not a bad place to start, like the exploration, but you got to go, we've said it many, many times, we've got to go way back upstream, back to what's the motivation behind, your particular brand of sinning, right? So what's another way to say it, what's the motivation behind the behavior?
Yeah, why are you falling victim
to
that?
And especially, I think most men live in a place of frustration. Why do I keep falling victim to this over and over and over again? And so what we're hopeful for in this series is to explore some more of, the spaces further upstream, some of these places where things happen to us And we make agreements and vows based on those things that happen to us that lead us to this behavior that's way downstream. So, yeah.
So we'll be right back on the Exploring More podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Harmon. I live in Springboro, Ohio, and I am here to talk a little bit about the Exploring More podcast, which is absolutely my favorite podcast that I listen to every week when they drop. The Exploring More podcast to me is a time to sit back and listen to two guys that feel like old friends, and you get into the realities of what it is to live as a man who's trying to follow Jesus. It's real, it's down to earth, it's gritty, it's funny, and these are two guys that will walk you through the things that are sometimes the most difficult, sometimes the most fruitful, sometimes the most glorious aspects of what it is to be walking with Jesus. And I love it. It is exciting to me. There is a wonderful spirit around the podcast of just community, friendship, being together. And I guess my encouragement for everyone out there who's like me and listens is to email the guys. The podcast to me presents the idea of a community of like-minded men who are searching to get their hearts back and to connect with other men who are also getting their hearts back. And I am just such a huge fan of the energy of the topics and of the way the guys go about bringing these ideas to light and taking the gospel out in a podcast in a way that is just so accessible to men from all walks of life.
Every great adventure starts with preparation, a place to gather, rest, and equip ourselves for the journey ahead. In the same way, Zoe's Base Camp is here for you, an online resource library created to encourage and strengthen Zoe allies on the road to deeper connection, healing, and restoration. A base camp is a staging ground, a place to prepare for the next leg of your expedition. At Zoe, Base Camp is a resource library designed to help you and our allies gear up for the journey of the heart. It is packed with devotionals, discussion guides, and podcasts to help you deepen your relationship with God and one another. When you visit Base Camp, you'll find a growing collection of resources, each crafted to guide you and the men in your circles on your walk with God. Each series that you find below includes a devotion plan with supplemental video content from the Explore More podcast. The devotionals are designed for both personal reflection and small group discussions, helping you dig deeper into God's truth while building meaningful relationships. On the Base Camp website, you will see the various series that we have available. When you click on a series, you'll have the opportunity to download the PDF devotion plan and the discussion guide questions. This also includes an invitation to reflect in time alone with God. Share the plan with your small group and send out the podcast videos for members to watch on their own time. Then, when you gather, dive into conversations about what God is revealing to each of you. Base Camp is more than a resource library. It's a tool for building redemptive brotherhood on the road to experiencing more life, more love, and freedom with God. Start your journey today, explore Base Camp, and reach out to us at allies@zoe.org if you have any further questions.
Welcome back, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Great to hear from Sean.
Yeah, man.
Our number one man.
Number one fan of
And,
the podcast, and been with us a long, long time, listening to it, and sends us text messages, and you know, seems like about every week or so we get one from him that says, "Man, that's the best one yet."
He's good for my heart, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So before the break, you said something about you brought up the false self and you brought sin I mean, we talked about this. There's an algebra about this deal, and you said the comment about too far downstream. I just want to, not that you weren't clear, but just continue to make sure that our listeners are with us. So
yeah, in particular, any new listeners we might have,
yeah,
that guys that we might have picked up along the road, just so that we can
so
make sure they understand.
So there's
where we're coming from.
there's a biblical algebra to this idea that before Christ we have a certain kind of nature, a sin nature. This is what C.S. Lewis talks about in Mere Christianity. Let's look at us. Let's observe us. And yet, even within that, there's some kind of moral code, Lewis says, that we strive for or try to adhere to and also fall short. But nonetheless, you step into this this place of believing and trusting or inviting Jesus into your life. And we would say then you have a new nature. So this is where the personality, split personality, this is when Paul talks about this thing that's operable in me that's not me. And that's the creature that we would call the false self. And Paul refers to it in Romans 7, the other authors of the New Testament as well. And it is the thing that actually bends your will, uses you to then make the kind of decisions, or that's if you even have a decision.
Yeah, most of the time you're just riding over the falls.
It's just programming.
Yeah, man.
To be programmed in a way that is going to lead to, the demise of the kingdom of darkness. And they're using you. They're using you against you. And fear and the opportunity, anger and proving. There's just things that go along with this in Galatians 5. So where I was wanting to not get too wordy, but to say that, something to hide, something to prove, and something to fear are just kind of hallmark false self traits, characteristics. And this one about hiding, this one, I want us to do our best to stay on topic because they leak into each other.
They do.
It's
hard
touch.
Not to.
The rings overlap. And if I was drawing it, I'm just going to do it for our listeners. Hide, prove, and fear. Right. So if those are these,
that's the Venn diagram.
The Venn diagram, and they overlap, and so right here in the middle. That's that territory, right, where I've got another circle there where it overlaps in the middle. That's where the false self is just so powerful.
Yep. That's the false self is what binds those three things together. Right?
Yes.
That's the gravity that
we'll
holds
work
them
on our
in orbit.
We'll work on our transparencies in our science class for the future. But that's it. So when you are as Paul says in Romans, when you are overcome with the things I don't want to do, I do, and the things that I do that I don't want to do, this dilemma, he's describing this, he's really describing the false self and the way that it operates. So this is a powerful thing, and it's not you. So if one of the characteristics of the false self is hiding, and we all suffer from that. And I do think it's important, as you said, if you're focusing on the behavior, you're way too far downstream. What is it, that we're afraid of? What is it that's making us hide? Because there's other kinds of being afraid, and so I get angry, or I get very aggressive, that kind of idea of,
which you could argue is also hiding.
Yes. Right. Because of fear, So that's the trick. How do you stay in this place of hiding? And I want to just kind of move traditionally with the idea, if we could, and instead of hiding from a display of something, a facade of something, I want to talk about hiding in a retreating way, hiding in a passive way, hiding in the shadows, hiding in a removal. Or seeing something and choosing, not to retreat, but definitely not to enter in.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not to move toward,
Yeah.
but rather cower or hide from the real possibility of either getting hurt or screwing it up.
Oh man. Yeah, and when we, I mean,
Deep breath.
Yeah. And, well, I just go back to the shame series we just did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's so much shame tied up in the idea of that. I mean, I've shared the story before of my dad didn't engage with me, really teach me how to do much, and so I had no one to shoot hoops with. I had no one to show me any of that stuff, and so I think I was 13, maybe 14 years old, and starting to sprout. I'm like, maybe I could play some basketball. And I understand the ball has to go in that hoop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was about it. And I walked out onto a court where a pickup game was going on and got shamed for not knowing how to play.
Yeah.
And just quit playing.
Yeah.
Still shot around on my own. Like, we
Right.
had a hoop.
Well, obviously that's safer.
Yeah,
right?
we had a hoop in the driveway, but,
Mm-hmm.
actually it was a neighbor's driveway.
Mm-hmm.
But never tried to engage in the team sport again.
Yeah, I love the correlation that you're making with hiding and shame and hiding. I'm not sure which has to come first, but embarrassment, inadequacy, or the feelings of incompetency.
Mm-hmm. Mockery. Like,
oh, yeah.
How can you not know what a zone defense is? I remember one guy said that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, was there ever a time you didn't know?
Right.
Jackwagon?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so the training, literally the training that goes into learning how to hide comes from and through moments of varied, I'd say synonyms, very varied ingredients of shame. And so to be embarrassed, to be belittled, to be made fun of, to be bullied.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole, when I think about some ways that I've hid, and I think there were some very, very powerful things in junior high and high school around the whole area of dating, around the whole area of experiences, and the talk around school, and always made me feel like stupid, uncomfortable, and
the talk did, or the
just the way and to know that
kind of a kiss and tell deal,
and you could be talked about. It didn't matter, you're just going to be very difficult to escape, the news feed,
right?
And this is before social media and all that. But so our social media was the whole gossip mill, of did you hear?
Parking lot after
did you
school,
hear?
The cafeteria,
did you hear? And all of that.
Locker room. So
and so, just to have, I think every kid in junior high and high school takes a turn, or is made, to be the brunt of some of that. So how do you just fly under the radar? How do you move? And that was part of it. I had some high school basketball experiences, and when you played well, you could be out and about. When you didn't, or you didn't play, the ability to overanalyze and overweigh that people were even thinking and feeling about.
Oh man, that's a big one.
That I have no record other than internally.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I was made to feel by some things that were moving in internally. My own, I say my own as if it was my own under my own construction, but these were the things that that were really powerful. That if you didn't contribute or somehow couldn't contribute well or didn't contribute well, those didn't just stay, in my athletic life, my sports life. I would say they found homes in multiple
they're training
facets. Right.
Those are training moments.
100%.
Walking down the hallway, way to go, Thompson, or way to go, Thompson.
And
I mean,
you might get both
and
in one stretch of the hall. Just depends.
Yeah, man. That is all training.
And church. So turning this into
the jungle of the
turning this into
hallways.
Church a little bit. That was another place that I felt kind of a regular weekly grading. And made to feel, that there's just no way you did more good this week than not good. So it was never a bar that could be reached, or that's how
the ledger's always red.
That's how I perceived it.
Yeah.
And so, what's that stupid placard that the beatings will continue until morale improves?
Yeah.
That I could have put that.
Oh man.
The churches I grew up in, I could have put their name on the front and put that on the back, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it was them, but that's definitely how I felt. So there was, so you add some of these younger ages, middle school, high school experiences in the jungle, and then you go to church on Sunday, and you're just reminded, just what you were starting with at the beginning, you're just reminded that you're a sinner. Mm-hmm. You're reminded that you're the problem. You're reminded. And so, in our particular denomination, here would come each week the sacraments. And it's not a celebration.
No.
It's
if I don't take them, because I feel like I'm not worthy, but if I don't, then they're going to say, why didn't you?
And they said even from up front, now if you're not going to take this seriously.
Right.
Then,
yeah. Or if you're in a sinful state,
I mean,
an unconfessed sin, you better not take them.
And I'm just saying, if you're in the bleachers or in a car, somewhere parked, that's one thing. But if you're in a pew, there is no hiding. No. It's just blatant shame.
They're literally made to make you feel uncomfortable.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
The old school ones.
Yeah. That smell. There's that smell.
Yeah. Yeah. Those churches built in the 1600s from where I'm from.
So I remember Sundays like hiding. I've said this tongue in cheek, but I remember, there was always an invitation at the churches that I grew up in. And man, if they had to sing it more than once or twice, I thought it was me. Mm. It must be me. That's how morally conflicted I was. And I wasn't I was so afraid of God. I wasn't, what do I want to say? I wasn't that immoral, as if, I mean.
You weren't a hooligan.
I wasn't a hooligan, but I was,
I've been given that title.
Trouble could find me.
Mm.
And
so you weren't the pot stirrer, but you could get swept up into it.
But because of if you're with the pot stirrers, and you're like, well, crap, I can't not do this, or I can't not go. There's the peer pressure. Because
then they'll call me chicken, and oh my gosh, dude, stand by me all over again.
All of that, yes. And so hiding, had. Yeah, Genesis 3 was just a place I think my soul and heart not only believed but lived. I was ashamed, and so I hid, and that's just what you did, And so, if my dogs, talking about dogs now, my dogs, if they know that we're about to leave, they just kind of start working their way to the kennel. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's an uncomfortable place for them.
No.
It's kind of a safe place.
Right.
But that's how I felt. I felt like, when you walk into church, I'm just going to go check into the kennel. I'm just going to go in there until...
You don't have to tell me.
until, maybe he'll whistle for me and I'll get a couple
a treat.
I'll get a couple pats and pets and a treat. But, oh, man, I mean, I remember so much so was that hiding and uncomfortable. But I knew I had to go because that was the responsible thing to do. And if you didn't go to church, well, there's demerits for that. I remember I was in college and a guy was trying to explain grace to me. And I said, well, it can't be that because then everybody would take advantage. As honest an answer as ever there was. Came right out of me. Well, it can't be that free. Then everybody would just take advantage. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about?
It would have been a better question. What happened to you?
That's like I said, well, that just, that's how, I think athletics, grades, music recitals, failures, underachieving, and church, all of that added up to a bit of a, I didn't think the enemy was after me. Honestly, I thought God was. And if I can just hide out or lay low. So this is the one that we were talking about a few weeks ago that I was probably I had a good 50-60% of those three circles. I'd say that was the bigger circle of hiding.
Yeah.
I have a proof circle like we'll talk about later.
Sure.
But as you said, and all of it motivated by fear, I think was really, really a powerful thing.
Yeah. So I shared that's terrible and hard to share, and thank you for sharing it. Makes me think the pew for you was like a foxhole. You're just trying to, are there any grenades in here? Can I just stay out of the way and stay out of the sight of guys that are trying to pick me off? So I shared the quick story about basketball, but as I was preparing for the podcast, God just brought back to my memory when I was probably, 14, 15. I have two older brothers and two older sisters. My eldest sister and my eldest brother were out of the house. Like my oldest sister got married when I was 6. She's 15 years older than I am. So, my eldest brother joined the Marine Corps the same year.
Right.
Like they're gone.
It's a different,
there's almost 2 sets of kids.
Right.
So my eldest sister and my brother and I, my other sister got married in 88, so she was in the house all the way till I graduated high school. And when my brother and I were younger, this was fine. We shared a bedroom, but we had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And when it got to be 14, 15, we were just fighting all the time. And I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, I had to get away from him. And he wasn't going to leave the bedroom. So I just surrendered it. And so we had a full basement. I went downstairs, made a bedroom for myself in the basement, which worked for a little while. And kind of had my own little setup down there. It was almost like an apartment, and had an Atari 2600 and all that deal. So down there, remember the original Atari? Yeah. Black and white TV, I think it was. But then we had an unusually wet spring, and the basement flooded to some and all of that. So then I end up in every house in New England. There's a room in between the exterior and the real interior of the house called a mudroom. And you just kind of come in from outside with the slush and the salt and all that crap, and you take your boots and all your winter clothes off in that room, and then you go into the house. And so ours was in between the garage and the kitchen, our mudroom, and it was probably, 2/3 the size of this room. So
like an 8x10?
It's like more like a hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Yeah, okay, 4x10.
Yeah, so that's
4x8.
So that became my bedroom.
Nice.
I had a day bed in there.
I wonder you wanted to go to the military. You were already have one of those cots that fall down.
Oh man, yeah, exactly.
Did you make you make a loft bed in there? How in the world did you?
No.
You got a bed in there?
It was just a twin size day bed. Yeah, that was it. And I think I had a desk in the other corner.
No wonder you want
basically a hallway.
No wonder you want your own room.
Between everywhere I go. Yeah. Want my own space.
We got to share a room recently in Baltimore too.
Usually when we travel, I'm like, I need my own space.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
funny.
So it's interesting. God's still unraveling, I think, some things about that, some agreements I've made, and how that relates to hiding. Like, we went to Montana once, and then we had this big bunk room.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And I'm like, I'm taking my bed and I'm going to the laundry room. And my wife chewed me out. Like, what are you doing hiding from all these guys? Sleeping on the floor in a laundry room? Like,
it's a big laundry room.
You're not. She sees it more than I do. Like, you had to do that for the last 3 years you lived at home. You were essentially, on your own, kind of orphan.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So this orphan spirit thing, man. If you think about all the way back to Oliver Twist. If you think about characters in different films and stories, and maybe the audience can share some with us, the orphans tend to hide, and kind of, like you said, I don't have to stay out of trouble. I just don't have to be seen getting in trouble, or I just don't have to, if I don't make too much noise, they'll leave me alone. And, man, that was kind of my story. The last few years I lived at home, and I got out of there. I mean, I graduated at 17 and went straight to UMass and had my own space there. So, fully took advantage of it in all the wrong ways, but yeah, God brought that up in my memory as I was preparing for the podcast, and he's still working on figuring out with me, or I'm still working on figuring out with him how that was hiding and what agreements that's led to in my life.
Yeah, there's just so many occasions in our lives that are going to have levels, some different level or weight to them. We were just talking about this last mission that we had after the Heart of Warrior encounter. We got to go work and guide 250 guys through some orientation things. And it was interesting. I told you this, and I'll say it on the podcast, that there were some guys, there was a few handful of guys who knew me there and brought me in there as a person that they felt like could be helpful, encouraging, and equipping for the men of their church. And so we step into that. I say all that, and what an honor that was. At the same time, I'm feeling, especially as we got there and got moving around and met the senior pastor, right? Met the big dog. Met some
Literally,
of the other
guys like 6'8".
He's a big guy. Met some other guys, and so I'm 60, and the sense I have and the thoughts that I begin to wrestle with, and I like what you said a few weeks ago. It didn't take me out, but it did take me down. If you know wrestling, you know what I'm saying. It didn't take me out, but they got a takedown, and I am on my back trying to push away from this. The hold that trying out had on me in those opening hours. I mean, our talks are already prepared. They're loaded. So I know the plays we're going to run. I mean, now it's about execution. And it's so it's so, I wish it wasn't true. It's so inconvenient, and yet it's what they think they can do to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's what they think they can do to me. So to feel, I think, some level of judgment or being or trying out, or the subjectivity of, you liking me depends on how I perform.
Yikes.
I mean, it is a way of the world. It is absolutely a way of the world.
No doubt.
Job interviews, college entrance applications, right?
First dates.
Coaches coming to the game. Oh my gosh. I mean, so I'm not talking about something that isn't real
Mm-hmm.
and isn't weighty and significant, but I'm talking about something that, as real and weighty as it is, this is kind of the stuff that can grow. And it's I'm going to use the weeds as an example. I didn't plan any of those.
Yeah.
We're talking about spring.
Yeah.
I didn't plan any of those. As a matter of fact, I planted some other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a way, it just has a way of growing, of moving, of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't treat it, you're going to get a lot more of it.
Right.
And again, whether you're anti-pesticide
Mm-hmm.
and you want to find a la natural or something, you better find something.
Right. Because the enemy will propagate
In your heart, in the
those
garden,
weeds.
in the garden of your heart, it will propagate. And so my wrestling that night, it really kind of walked up there with me to the stage, and then until those first couple moments, it took till then when I got out of the chokehold or out of the half Nelson or whatever, and got into being me.
Mm-hmm.
And getting to offer and share what one of the messages that we believe is important for men to know. But, it seemed like, okay, I'm going to wait for you at your seat. I'm going to wait for you in your room. I'm going to, and it's just a powerful thing, this hiding and proving and fearing. And here's the point I want to make as we wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't see this, I'm going to say this officially. Let me look in the camera. If you don't see this, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It most likely means you don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know a man that doesn't contend with some percentage or reality or combination of these three things.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories that we're trying to tell, the history that we have with it, the current reality of wrestling with it, it is at the dining room table. It can be on you or try to come at you, or maybe be at work in you when you're at your kids' ball games. When you're at their recitals, it's not you anymore, but the feeling that their performance now is a verdict on your value,
Mm-hmm.
or your quality
Yeah.
as a parent.
All right.
I mean,
Which is not then a very long stretch to my
Yeah.
worth as a person.
yeah, these three, hiding and fearing and proving. I mean, you cannot put any more active ingredients to conditional love than those three things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they are the recipe for weed burgers, weed in your garden, weeds that will not, there's no nutritional value. You just live so compromised when those things are running the show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just trying to survive. Scarcity. Yeah.
So that's why
not good.
That's why I read earlier that it's experiencing the love of God that actually not only transforms you, but is the antidote for those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because he comes looking for you, not to punish you, but to rescue you from those things. I mean, this is so, as we just touch on, how do you learn not to hide or have nothing to hide? Yeah, it has been my absolute joy and pleasure over that. That's why I wrote these books, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. To be a beloved son wasn't just something I wrote about in theory. It was what I was experiencing in my late 30s and early 40s. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, you can live like this, being loved? Well, you can if things are out of the way.
If you can see what's in the way.
Yes, of what's in the way, and how I have learned conditional love, and therefore apply that to all my relationships, and especially this one.
We give a lot of credit to the enemy, and rightfully so. He's cunning and ancient, right? But we have wallpapered the walls with this stuff.
Of ourselves, right?
We have.
Of our yes, yeah.
So stripping this stuff off is really, really, really important.
Really helpful.
To enter into.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
And so, I think the last thing I want to say, here it is, Andy. This is from King Me, about hiding, fearing, and proving. And so I wrote about each stage of the masculine journey has its warfare, and therefore each stage has its woundings. And we talk about wounds, agreements, and vows that make up the false self. Mm-hmm. No one gets through this journey unscathed. Too many things have happened to you that are not good. Sin never is. If we could fix it on our own, there would be way more settled, strong, and kind men moving about the planet. Right now, that's not the case. Most men are still asleep. They don't see it. But you are not most men. I pray that by now, several hundred pages in, if you've arrived at this page, that you are well on your way to being an oriented man, a man living like Jesus with nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear. God isn't done with you, and therefore neither is your enemy. For all we've tried to tame the Christian life with theology and academics, it remains wild and dangerous, wonderful and hard, an adventure to be taken and a battle to be fought. It's far from tame.
Yeah. Amen to that.
So.
Amen to that. Yeah, man. Glad to be on the journey with you.
Yeah, man. And
glad you're a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, I've only been one for a decade, but and I've had some good. It's been a good decade, I would say, for the most part. But it is painful, just as you cheer and root for any team. Mm-hmm. And friends, if hiding is something that you're awakening to and starting to see, and God is showing you more and more, I really want to recommend The Heart of a Warrior, a book about how to be a beloved son, how to receive the love of God that can transform us. And any other questions, comments, concerns, you can reach us at exploring more
at zoe.org.
At zoe.org.
Yep.
Exploring more at zoe.org.
Leave a comment.
Yeah.
Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate you.
Yep. Hey, we'll move around our diagram in the next episode and talk about proving. So see you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.